September 5th, 2024, order. Ms. Greenick, can you do roll call for us, please?
Board Member Burley?
Present.
Board Member Clementi?
Here.
Chairwoman Farina?
Here.
Board Member Green?
Present.
Board Member Menendez? Present. Board Member Fraser? Present.
We have a full board. Make sure your mics are on, so he doesn't come out of that room again. Approval for the agenda today. Are there any changes that anybody wants for the agenda today? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted for September 5th, 2024.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion made by Member Menendez, and Mr. Burley, I think, was first. Seconded by Mr. Burley. Member Burley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is set. Approved for the minutes of August 15th, 2024. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? I'll accept the motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes dated August 15th, 2024 as submitted.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Done. Formal statement. Petitioners and members of the audience. The Zoning Board of Appeals, as herein created, is a body of limited powers where there are particular difficulties or unnecessary hardships in the way of carrying out the strict letter of the Fraser Code. The board shall have the powers in passing upon appeals to vary or modify any of the provisions of the code relating to the construction, structural changes in equipment, or alterations of buildings or structures so that the spirit of the code shall be observed, public safety secured, and substantial justice done. No variance in the provisions or requirements of the code shall be authorized by the board unless the board finds in evidence that all of the following facts exist. A, that there are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question as to its intended use or the property that do not apply in generally to other properties in the same zoning district. That's B, that such variance is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property that is similar to that possessed by others by their properties in the same district and in the same vicinity. The possibility of increased financial return shall not be of itself deemed sufficient to warrant a variance. C, that authorizing of such a variance will not be a substantial detriment to the adjacent properties and will not materially impair the intent and the purpose of the Fraser Code or the public interest. D, that the condition, I have a glare that I can't read behind. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of the property for which the variance is sought is not of so general or recurrent in nature as to make it reasonably practicable for the formulation of general regulations for such a condition or situations. Having said that, there are no public hearings tonight. So we're going to open ZBA 24-04. It is a postponed case for Myers, 34835 Utica Road. Is anybody here for Myers? Ms. Sayre, can you lead us through it?
Thank you, Chair Farina. So this is a variance request for parking reduction at Meyer, which is located at 34835 Utica Road. The request is to reduce the parking requirement from its current 1,079 spaces to 999, which is a reduction of 80 parking spaces. So the current requirement from the ordinance is 1,608 spaces, but this site has a long history of parking reductions, which we've included in a supplemental memo. But in 2019, they had it reduced in the beginning of 2020 and also in mid-2020, reducing it to its current 1,079. So we'll also note that if this variance is granted tonight, the applicant, in order to officially be able to reduce that parking, would need to get a site plan amendment as well, which is consistent with the previous variance that was approved for the parking reduction. So regarding exceptional or extraordinary circumstances, the applicant notes that the property is much larger than the surrounding properties, and that with significantly more parking than needed, and that a parking reduction could be utilized for new development. We'll also agree that it is the biggest commercial general parcel in Fraser, making it a unique case. Additionally, the applicant, in regards to substantial property enjoyment, so while the applicant didn't provide any substantive evidence other than increased financial return, we note that there have been parking reductions in the commercial general district and in the vicinity of the subject site and within the subject site, which could be indicative that a reduction would allow the subject site to enjoy the same property right as nearby properties. Regarding substantial detriment to adjacent properties, we don't find any evidence that this parking reduction will negatively impact any adjacent properties. We do note that the location in which the applicant is proposing the parking reduction does leave a small lot in the south of the parcel that it sort of orphans it from the rest of the Meyer parking, so we would ask the applicant what their plans for that is, if it's employee parking, or otherwise it's not necessarily usable, as no one's really going to park there. And then regarding the conditions or situation being so general or recurrent, again, due to the large nature and large amount of parking currently on the site, we do not believe it'll create a general rule or situation. In terms of the modification or setback being sponsored by Planning Commission or being phased, these are not applicable. Overall, we find that the variance would not negatively impact properties and meets the requirements for a variance being granted, so we would recommend granting that variance. We'll also note, I guess, on the image up on the screen, they do have 70 banked parking spaces in that southwest corner. That's where those are located, and that was part of the August 2020 Planning Commission parking reduction. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions for Lauren from the board?
Yes. I know they're updating the parking structure for buildings. Do we have anything that would pertain to them in writing yet, like that draft?
So, I'm sorry, parking structure?
The parking, how many parking spots you use per building, minimum parkings? Do we have it updated, or at least a draft that'll give approximately what they're looking at right now?
In the general ordinance update?
Yes.
We're currently not at that point in the ordinance rewrite, so I wouldn't be able to say that.
Okay.
But we are at the point, at our last meeting when we postponed, we asked both you and, not you, you were not here, but the council that was here to check with what is happening in cities around us. And I don't know whether you guys have done that or not.
In terms of parking minimum,
Yes.
I do not have anything right now.
Mr. Farina, I don't have anything specific, but I would say generally it varies from community to community. Some are shying away from parking minimums. Others have, 2 per the type of business. It honestly, it's very different all across the board.
Okay, I would like to see if you have something from other cities, what they're doing, since we are going to be looking at the zoning for all of us. And I'd like to look at that kind of stuff.
Are you interested primarily in surrounding communities?
Close to us, yeah. Or somebody our size. I mean, if they're not butting up to us, I mean, what does Centerline do? They're about as small as we are. And I'm sorry, I thought we had discussed that at the last meeting. I didn't mean to spring that on you.
Was that at the steering committee, or was it at zoning? It was at zoning. Okay,
Yeah.
I apologize then for.
It's okay. Okay. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, members of the Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Joseph Paluzzi, and I'm with Veris Development Group. We are the developers for this proposed site. And I have Mr. Reed Cooksey with me this evening from Stonefield Engineering. They're our civil engineer on this site. And we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. I think Lauren brought up a good point. That divorced area that's going to be there where the blue arrow is. What do you plan on doing with that?
So that will be employee parking for Meyer.
Okay.
And their garden center is on that side of the property.
Correct.
So the employees and any, obviously, customer base that would choose to park there to enter the garden center, that's what they target that parking to be. Currently, it's really just not used.
Where do the employees park right now?
They park in the main parking lot for the most part. And as you can see from that aerial, and if you look at other aerials, the field is often just not used to its capacity.
Well, and that back parking, I've never seen any cars.
Yeah, it's very quiet back there.
Is there an entrance for employees on that side?
There is.
Okay.
And also, I'm sure that all of you are familiar, but the frontage of this proposed development, I'm told, was once the original farmhouse to the large parcel that was a farm / McKinley Airport. So we had purchased the farmhouse some time ago when we developed the other portion of this site. And ironically, we were able to then have discussions with Myers to purchase the rear portion so that we could do something with it. And that's where we are today before you.
And you'll be coming before the planning commission for a site plan for that. What do you plan on putting in there?
Mr. Car Wash.
Okay.
So pending favorable outcome here this evening, we will then, our plans are already, I believe, with the city here for special land use and site plan approval. But I believe that we needed to get to this point this evening and hopefully get a favorable recommendation from your body in order for those to then be placed on an agenda and noticed appropriately.
Are there any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I got a question. Do you know how many, if they were to make a new Meyer, how many parking spots would they allocate for that?
Yes, 500.
And that would be for the same square footage as that building?
Yes, sir.
So they would have that building at 500?
Yeah, They customarily are not doing that size building any longer, but the answer to your question is 500.
Is there any difference in the process of the Myers? As in filtering people in and out on the newer stores? Do they have more of the self-checkouts or?
I couldn't answer that question, but what I can tell you is top priority for Myers is customer experience. So they'll never jeopardize the customer experience at one of their locations in any way that they can prevent dissatisfaction from the consumer. That's their, number one, right? Customer service and the customer experience.
I think part of what they're doing here is for shareholder experience, because they're taking that off of the books, which absolutely increases their return on investment, which is what the shareholders look at.
I'm sure that there's some element of that to be true. But ultimately, monetarily related, the exchange on this to jeopardize customer experience is not the driving force behind this.
And have you guys looked at traffic coming in and out of there?
We have.
And?
And that entire package will be part of the site plan submittal. And
You've done a study?
we have.
Okay.
I mean, the traffic is the one thing I'd be worried about, because they put that other strip right next door, and everything is so compact and tight, two cars can't even slip past each other. If you have anything larger than a small SUV, you can barely back up without backing into another vehicle. So depending on what's going to be in place there, I worry about the size of the lot.
Well, I think we'll have to look at that at the planning
Yeah,
commission.
that's more of a planning issue.
And this far south entry point, it's barely ever used. And it's existing.
That's true. Yeah. But public safety will look at it for traffic and fire and turnarounds. Okay, for our attorney, Alicia, we held the public hearing last meeting, so we do not have to do that again?
That is correct.
Okay,
I have a quick question for
go ahead.
you. The bank parking, that doesn't affect anything, correct? The reserved, or the declaration of reserved parking, that has no bearing on this, and it doesn't affect this variance in any shape or form?
What do you mean by effect, I guess?
I mean, the fact that that's in place, that doesn't affect the variance, because it's treated more like part of another variance.
Well, essentially, what the banked parking is it's a mechanism that allowed, I believe this was part of the AutoZone request, which is how they got the banked parking. It allowed AutoZone essentially to not have to come get a variance, but go to Planning Commission. Planning Commission found that this space in the rear of the Meyer site, if the city ever decided that the deficient, correct.
Okay.
So essentially what the variance is doing now is because Planning Commission kind of used up the space on the site for the reserved parking. That's not available to the applicant this time around, which is why they're coming to the zoning board now, looking for that reduction. So that obviously is still in place, it's recorded. If this is approved this evening and the site plan amendment also is approved for Meyer, the reserved parking agreement is something that our office will look at to see if that needs to be revised, if it needs to be re-recorded, because the legal descriptions might change, the number of spaces, things of that nature, but that is more so tied to the site plan based on those
And not
approvals.
this. Okay, perfect. That was
Correct.
my question. All right, thank you.
Joseph?
Is it a full-service car wash you're seeking to build, or a self-service?
It's full service.
Full service.
I have a question. I pressed the button. Okay, sorry. You presently own this property? The parking lot, you bought that from Meyer?
We have not closed on the property with Meyer.
Okay,
We own the parcel that has the frontage.
okay,
We own that.
thank you.
This really has nothing to do with the variance, but I was told that the soil had to be excavated from that because it was contaminated from the front.
No, I'm not aware of that at all. We demolished the home, and we have all the environmentals are clean.
Good, all right. Must have been a rumor. Okey-doke. Any other questions? I'll accept a motion. Anybody want to make a motion?
I will. Make the motion.
Okay,
Let me read it. To obtain a variance from the zoning ordinance standards to reduce the number of required off-street parking for a commercial business from 1,079 parking spaces to 999 parking spaces, with the current requirement being 1,608 parking spaces.
Mr. Chimenti, is that a motion to approve?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify.
okay. Any other additions to that motion?
Should we add, with the site plan approval, review approval?
It's not really necessary. It is part of the next step, but if the zoning board wants to make the record clear that it's conditioned upon Meyer obtaining a site plan amendment approval, the board absolutely can do that, but it's not necessary.
Anybody else, Roseanne?
I can add. The property is much larger than the surrounding properties, and based on the fact, the historical observation of the site indicates that there is more than sufficient parking for the use of the Meyers, and a reduction of 80 spaces for the outlot will not be a detriment to the use and development of the piece or the adjacent property in the vicinity. The applicants have met the standards for obtaining a variance, and lastly, the current approved site plan will have to be amended.
Okay. Is everybody in line with that?
I think, did you say 80 or 88?
80.
80. 80.
80.
Is it 88, or am I wrong? Is my math wrong?
80, correct, Lauren?
80.
Okay.
80.
sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Joe?
Mhm.
Do I have a second? Well, you made all
Can I
those.
second the, second?
Okay, we have a motion that's made and seconded. You know, I'm not going to ask you to.
God bless you, sir.
But you will have it on the tape to put it in, all right. Can we have a roll call, please?
Board Member Chimenti,
Yes.
Board Member Menendez,
Yes.
Board Member Burley,
Yes.
Chair Farina,
Yes?
Board Member Green,
Yes.
and Board Member Stacy.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Good luck.
Let me give you this. Do anybody have one that's not?
Written on?
Yes.
Check mine.
There you go.
Oh, Joseph, here's,
Thank you, Joseph.
Good night. Thank you.
don't you, does it, you have to wait for your,
So when he's famous, you can say, hey, I got a signature.
Like a clean car.
And they're beautiful, beautiful operators. They're really nice. Have you been to one?
I live across the street from there. I can't say I'm thrilled.
Well, I can assure you that they run a very, very clean and well-staffed operation. And their buildings are really good looking.
is it laser or brush?
Well, it actually is. Yeah, it's all.
Brush or laser?
It's touchless.
Oh.
Pretty cool.
I love them. I had an incident with the one on Hayes where I got stuck in there and they didn't,
There you go, sir.
Thank you very
thing
much.
jammed and it wouldn't work and,
It'll be nice to
Anybody?
complete the project there too, in its entirety.
good
We
luck.
won't have any more variance requests for.
Good luck.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Unfinished business of the board. I'm not aware of any unfinished business of the board. Anybody? Okay, monthly report. Lauren?
All right, so I believe that the big boy did get another extension till the end of the month. I believe there were some issues with the owner passing, and so there were some things there that the city was granting some leniency on. In terms of the strip mall at 32660 Utica, they have a building permit issued. I think this might have been the same from last month because we only had, I think, 2 weeks between these. Sheets is tentatively October at the earliest for returning to city council. Foundation Solutions is in engineering review, and his engineer is currently in contact with the city engineer. Sunbelt Rentals received their variance last month from this board, and I believe they're waiting for approved minutes before moving forward with their engineering plans and final site plan. Divergent, we are still waiting for them to come back. They're still having issues with the architect. Planning Commission approved the facade for the strip mall at 16000 15 Mile Road. And the only other new one was Meyer tonight, which this board granted. The sign ordinance, we will be bringing that back in October with the comments from Planning Commission. And the full zoning ordinance rewrite is in the early phases, and I believe Mr. Farina was going to provide an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren, when you said bring it back, you're going to bring it back before whom? The,
Planning Commission.
okay.
Yeah, Planning Commission to recommend
council.
to council for adoption.
So I would highly recommend if you guys want your input in there that, and we do deal a lot with signs, that you could attend that planning commission meeting. It might be a good idea. And, yeah, rather than learn about it on the fly. Yes, sir.
Anything, Lauren, on Dairy Queen?
I believe it's still.
On litigation?
Yep, that's my understanding. That's my understanding. That's what it was, I believe, last week, Mr. Noel.
Have they got a date yet, or anything on the docket, or anything? Nothing?
I'm not sure on that.
Okay, I'm just curious. I mean, it's been carrying on for years now. She just got to come to a,
I think Ms. Erickson would be the one to ask that because they're the ones that are in court.
I have not been personally involved with the Dairy Queen litigation. I can ask Mr. Denault, but I do know that unfortunately cases take some time, including years, unfortunately. So I do not know the current status of everything, though.
If you could maybe shoot us an email
Sure.
status, that would be nice.
the place is falling apart pretty soon. It's going to be on gross back. I mean, it's just, the roof is caving in, and, it's going to be a real eyesore now.
Okay.
We're on 14 mile road, one of the two.
My report tonight as liaison is going to be mainly with the zoning ordinance update that we were all asked if we wanted to be a part of that, and we have 3 members of the ZBA on there. Joe is there, and Ms. Stacy is there, and I am on there, and Kathy is on there for the Planning Commission, and 2 people from, there are 2 council people, the mayor and Patrice is on that committee. And we met for the first time, and Lauren very gently pushed us through the agenda.
Thanks, Lauren.
And there is going to be a zoning ordinance survey. And some of the items we were looking at is for affordable housing, that's a big issue coming out now throughout the country. How do people afford housing? And there's some options to look at in this survey about that. There's going to be a question about chickens in this survey. Should we allow chickens? If we do, then we have to set rules and guidelines and how many roosters and no roosters and all that kind of stuff. So this is scheduled to go on. Our next meeting is in December. It's going to go on through all of 2025 and culminate in something, recommendation at the end of 2025 to update our zoning. One of the items we are looking at is currently the large parcel, the golf course, large parcel is under recreation. We're looking at saying, is that viable for what we want in the long range? And we're looking at options for that, might be housing, might be something else. So those are some items. If you have inputs, you can grab any one of us that are there or come, if you want to come yourself, I don't see there'd be a problem. So that's all I have. If you have any questions?
When is the proposed finished product of that survey going to go out to the residents?
I think you're trying to head for the end of October, aren't you? Is that-
Beginning, I believe we're still smoothing out the survey and the engagement site, but we are hoping to send out a link in the October water bills. I believe they go out on the 13th.
So that's who it'll go to, everybody that has a water bill?
Yeah, we'll also, advertise it on the city website and around community facilities, and we'll have hard copies available as well at the senior center and city hall.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything you want to add, Lauren?
No, I appreciate everyone's time who's volunteered. Mr. Farina requested monthly updates, so we'll include that into the monthly report on progress made. A lot of it will be drafting now, but we are still, again, in a startup, so we're still looking at, engagement mainly. But again, appreciate everyone's time.
Okay. All right, public to be heard. Kathy? Alex? I've got nothing. Okay. Well, an honest lawyer, gosh. Okay, Joseph, you have anything?
Tomorrow night at John F. Kennedy, we're having our fish fry from 4 till 7:30. 3 pieces of fish for $10, $13. 2 pieces of fish for $10. It's hand done with beer battered, and it's really good.
Nothing at this time.
I just want to add on to what Joe said. My wife and I go, and we buy a 3-piece dinner, and it feeds 2 of us. I mean, you get a lot of food, and it's really good, really done. So. And the beer is very cheap. Anyway,
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me.
all right. Cynthia?
Nice to see everybody. I missed you folks.
Miss you.
Ditto.
All right. Ms. Erickson, anything?
Nothing this evening.
Lauren?
Nothing for me either, thank you.
Okay. I think we've handled everything. Keep me honest. All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Both? Motion to adjourn.